Okay, artist, today is the day we get to start weaving. The beginning of weaving, setting up our loom, is probably the hardest part of this whole project. So I really need you to focus and listen to the directions. It can get overwhelming if you don't just listen to step by step. I'm going to break it down for you and kind of give you a story to follow that will help you to be able to do it on your own. So the very first thing you want to do is just find any notch and put it into your plate or your loom. Just leave a little tail, and you're going to put a piece of tape on the back to keep it in place. And that's to start. So you just put it in the notch and tape the extra on the back. Now this is very important. You're going to need to count. Everybody should have exactly 19 notches. So we're going to count from the right of where our yarn is in, and you need to count and put this notch in the 10th. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and this gets put in number 10. On this side, we should have 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 on the left, 9 on the right. That is very important, or it will not work when we do the circle weaving to create the loom. So the first part of the story is we crossed the street and we went into this house. We're going to think of each of these notches as houses. You go in this house and they yell and they're like, "Get out of my house." And you go next door and come out through the back door. So we went in the front and came out the back. And you're like, "Yikes, I got kicked out of the house." And you run across the street, making the world's skinniest X. Not a wide X, not a super wide X, the skinniest X. And you put it in that notch. And the story keeps going. You go in the house, you get yelled at, you go next door and come out the house, and they say, "Get out of my house." And you run across the street and make the world's skinniest X, which would be this notch. This would be too big, too big, too big. I need to go right next to this notch. You go in the house, they say, "Get out of my house." You go to the neighbor's house, they're like, "Get out of here." You run across the street and make the world's skinniest X. So in, out, run across the street, skinniest X. In, out, run across the street and make the world's skinniest X. If I do it too tight, you can see how mine's starting to pull up. I need to make it a little looser. If I make it too loose, like this, I gotta get this in here. Too loose, and it's not gonna hold my weaving. So you want it tight, but you don't want it pulling on your plate. So I go in, out the neighbor's house, across the street, in, to the neighbor's house. You can see I keep turning my plate because I think it's easier to go in and turn it towards me, out. And then turn it and you cross the street, in, to the neighbor's house, out, cross the street, in, out. And now I have no house to go into. I would have had to cross the street, but there's nothing over here. So I'm actually ready to start weaving. Now I think it's easier to make a little needle because we're going to be weaving with what's left. So put a little piece of tape on the end of your yarn and just roll it to make yourself kind of a little needle. Doesn't have to be perfect. It just helps us to do over under. So now I have my warp. Remember, warp is the string that holds the whole loom together. This is now becoming my weft, the fabric or the yarn that goes through the warp. Just like we did with our paper ones, paper weavings, we are going to go over and under. So it doesn't really matter what you start with. It just matters that you go every other. So if I go over this warp, I go under the next. Over, under. I think this is very confusing in here, so I stick to the edge of my paper or my plate, and I keep looking at these warps and remembering over, under, and you can kind of see that I was over this warp, under, over, under, and I'm going to keep going around, over, under, and you need to pull it through after a couple or it's kind of gets stuck. But then it's like, wait, that's confusing. Well, I can pull it back and see the last warp was under. So this one needs to be over. So I go over, under, over, under, over, under, pull it through. I'm gonna go again. I ended with under, so I need to go over this yarn. Over, under, and I'm gonna pull it nice and tight, and I'm back to the beginning. And I'm just gonna keep going. If I'm not sure, I pull it back and I see, oh, I was under this warp. So I need to go over, under, and now my loom is a complete circle, and this is all I'm gonna do until it's all filled up. So I'm gonna go, that was under, over, and pull it through, and you want it nice and tight in the middle. Now, if you ever get to a point where you're like, I don't want this color anymore, I wanna switch yarns, you're gonna go get another piece of string or yarn, and at any point you can choose to stop, because I can cut this. So say I want to add another color. So I'm going to line up, maybe I don't want to do this one at all anymore, so I'm going to cut it, leave a little bit of a tail so I can tie a knot. And I'm going to line up my next color, which is yellow, and I put the two ends together. And I make a big loop, and I'm going to make a knot. So they go through the knot. And now I have these, you're just making a knot and you have these little tails. For this part, remember there's only one of me, but if you need help making a knot or tying another string on, just ask and I will help you. And I need to make a little needle at the end. It helps me for weaving, doing the over under. And now I could continue as if it's it's still the same string. They're attached, and I'm gonna go, I ended under, so I need to go over, under, and as I get to that yellow string, it will just keep going, and I will put the knot underneath. I'm gonna do it quick so you guys can see here. Over, under, and I have to pull it through, and don't let it get caught on your plate, which it likes to do if you have too much string. You don't wanna have too long of a string, it makes it really hard to work with. Over, under, and pull it through. I'm getting almost to the yellow now. I'm pulling it nice and tight. Over, under, and pull it through. And you can see I'm almost to that yellow. Over, under. When I get to the yellow, I'm just gonna tuck the knot underneath. And there it is. See how that knot, it's just, I can push that under, and as I come around with my yellow now, I'll just make sure the knot stays down. All right, the making of the loom is the hardest part. After this, just remember, over, under the whole time.